Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Always. What are we getting into today?
This one's all about human evolution, and I have a feeling it's going to be a wild ride.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. Human evolution never disappoints.
Yeah, definitely more exciting than those boring straight lines you see in textbooks, right?
But totally. Those are way too simplified.
Okay, so we've got this excerpt here. It focuses on Homo sapiens and their, well, not so distant cousins, the Neanderthals and Denisovans.
Ah, getting right into the good stuff.
Yeah, buckle up because we're talking about ancient migrations, interbreeding, and maybe even some mystery relatives.
Sounds like we're about to untangle a pretty messy family tree.
More like a tangled web, right? By the time we're done here, you'll never look at your family tree the same way again.
That's for sure. You ready to get started?
Absolutely. Let's go back to the very beginning. Where did Homo sapiens first appear?
Well, our source material says Africa, right? Over 200,000 years ago.
Right, Africa, over 200,000 years ago. But I have a feeling there's more to the story.
Oh, there's definitely more to it. It's not as simple as just pointing to one spot on a map and saying, there they are.
So it's not as straightforward as it seems.
Nope, not at all. For a long time, the popular theory was the single origin model. Basically, Homo sapiens emerged in one specific place and then spread out from there.
Okay, I can see how that would make sense, but you're saying it's not that simple.
Right. Lately, there's been growing support for what's called the Pan-African model.
Pan-African model.
Oh.
Okay, that's a new one for me. Break it down.
Okay, so imagine, instead of one single origin point, you've got multiple populations of early humans spread across Africa.
So all across the continent.
Exactly. And they're interacting, mixing genes, and over time, this whole process leads to the emergence of Homo sapiens.
So it's more of a gradual continent-wide process.
More like a slow simmer, yeah. Not just one eureka moment, but a slow evolution across a huge area.
I like that analogy, the slow simmer. Okay, that makes a lot more sense, but what kind of evidence is there to support this Pan-African model?
Well, there's the Jebel Irhoud discovery in Morocco, for one thing. They found Homo sapiens fossils there that could be as old as 340,000 years old.
Wow, that pushes the timeline back quite a bit.
Right, and it gets even wilder. There's also the Apidima 1 skull from Greece. It's dated to around 210,000 years ago, so that suggests that Homo sapiens might have actually ventured out of Africa even earlier than we originally thought.
Out of Africa even earlier. Wow. And that means...
Well, it means they could have been interacting with Neanderthals outside of Africa much earlier than we previously thought.
So we've got these early Homo sapiens, maybe even earlier than we thought, migrating out of Africa, maybe even in waves. But what was waiting for them out there? Was it an empty world?
Oh, not at all. Imagine a world that's teeming with different human species.
Like what? Give me some examples.
You got Homo erectus, who had already been around for over 1 million years at that point. Then there's Neanderthals hanging out in Eurasia, Denisovans in parts of Asia, and even the mysterious hobbits.
Wait,
Yeah, Homo floresiensis. They were living on the island of Flores in Indonesia.
So a real prehistoric party going on.
Yeah.
But did all these groups get along?
That's where things get really interesting. Genetic studies are showing us some mind-blowing connections between all these different groups. We're talking about interbreeding and not just isolated incidents. This was pretty widespread.
Hold on, you're telling me I could have a Neanderthal ancestor somewhere back there?
It's totally possible. In fact, most people with European or Asian descent have a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA.
Seriously? That's kind of awesome. But it's not just Neanderthals, right?
Right. Denisovans share genetic similarities with modern populations in South Asia and Oceania. So there were definitely ancient encounters and migrations happening that we're only just beginning to understand.
So it wasn't just about different human groups living side by side. They were actually swapping genes and creating hybrid offspring.
Exactly. Makes that whole family tree idea a lot more complicated, doesn't it?
It's definitely more like a tangled web now.
A web that stretches across continents and time, connecting us to these other human populations in ways we never imagined.
I'm with you there. Okay, my mind is officially blown. This is already way more complex and interesting than I thought. And speaking of complex, what about this thing I'm seeing here about a Neanderthal bottleneck? What was that all about?
Ah, yes, the Neanderthal bottleneck. So at some point, Neanderthals went through a period where their genetic diversity took a nosedive.
A nosedive, meaning...
It's like their population suddenly shrank, leaving a smaller group with a much less diverse gene pool.
So, like, what caused this bottleneck? Was it a sudden climate change, some kind of disease,
Yeah.
maybe a war with another group?
We're still trying to figure out the specifics, but it was probably a combination of factors: climate fluctuations, competition with other groups, maybe even Homo sapiens, and internal conflicts. All of that could have played a role.
So this bottleneck really shaped their future, huh?
It did. But here's the thing. It also had big implications for modern humans, especially those in Eurasia.
Okay, I'm seeing a connection here, but help me out. How so?
Remember all that interbreeding we were just talking about? Well, the Neanderthals who interbred with Homo sapiens were actually descendants of that bottleneck population.
Oh, I see. So the Neanderthal DNA we carry today is mostly from this smaller, less diverse group.
Exactly. It's a reminder that dramatic events from way back in the past can still have a ripple effect on us today.
That's incredible. It really shows how interconnected everything is. But wait, are you telling me things get even more complicated? Seriously, how much more tangled can this family tree get?
Buckle up, because this is where things get really wild. Genetic evidence suggests that there are at least 2 more unknown archaic human populations out there.
2 more. Wait, so it's not just Neanderthals and Denisovans in the mix. Who are these mystery relatives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some scientists believe they could be remnants of Homo erectus, or maybe a completely unknown branch of the human family tree. We're still in the early stages of research here, but every new discovery just adds another layer to this already amazing story of human evolution.
Okay, you've officially blown my mind again. Mystery ancestors, genetic bottlenecks, a prehistoric melting pot of human evolution. This is a lot to take in.
I know, right? But that's what makes it so exciting. It's like we're putting together a giant, unbelievably complex puzzle.
And speaking of puzzle pieces, what about this Denny I keep seeing mentioned?
Yeah.
Who is Denny, and why is she so important to all of this?
Denny. She's a real rock star in the world of paleoanthropology. Denny, which is short for Denisova 11, is the nickname given to the fossilized remains of a young girl who lived about 90,000 years ago in Siberia.
Siberia. So she was a Denisovan then?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Genetic analysis of her remains revealed something totally unexpected. Denny was a first-generation hybrid. Her parents were from 2 different human groups.
No way. Seriously. Okay, I have to know who are her parents.
Her mother was a Neanderthal, and her father was a Denisovan.
Wow. So Neanderthals and Denisovans weren't just occasionally swapping genes, they were having children together.
Exactly. Denny's discovery is undeniable proof that interbreeding between these groups wasn't some rare fluke. It was happening often enough to produce offspring.
My mind is blown. This changes our whole understanding of how these human groups were interacting.
It really does. And there's another fascinating detail about Denny's mom. Her DNA was more closely related to Neanderthals from Western Europe than those from Eastern Europe.
Wait, so a Neanderthal from Western Europe ends up in Siberia, has a child with a Denisovan, and their remains are preserved for us to find tens of thousands of years later. That's incredible. What a journey.
It is. And it suggests that these ancient human groups were much more mobile and interconnected than we once thought. They were migrating across huge distances, encountering other groups, forming complex relationships that are still leaving their mark on our genes today.
This is making me seriously rethink how I imagine human migration in the past. We tend to think of these ancient migrations as pretty straightforward, but Denny's story shows us just how dynamic and interconnected everything really was.
Absolutely. Picture a world with no borders or nations, just different groups of humans constantly moving and interacting, sometimes peacefully, sometimes not. It was a world in constant flux, a swirling blend of cultures and genes, and interbreeding was one of the many ways these groups shaped each other.
So Neanderthals interbreeding with Homo sapiens and Denisovans. Now we know Neanderthals and Denisovans were interbreeding too. And don't forget about those mystery ancestors we talked about earlier. This is one big prehistoric family reunion.
It really is. Makes you wonder just how many more secrets are still out there, buried in the earth, just waiting for us to discover them.
I know, it's exciting and humbling at the same time. We still have so much to learn about our own past.
For sure. And speaking of humbling, let's talk about another big event that really shook things up for humans. That bottleneck we talked about. Well, some researchers think it wasn't just Neanderthals who experienced a bottleneck. Homo sapiens might have gone through a similar population squeeze around the same time.
Really? A bottleneck for Homo sapiens too? What would have caused something like that?
One theory is a massive volcanic eruption about 74,000 years ago. It's called the Toba supereruption. It's thought to have caused a global volcanic winter, which would have decimated human populations around the world.
A volcanic winter. Wow. What would that even be like?
Imagine prolonged periods of darkness, freezing temperatures, and widespread famine. Our ancestors would have been struggling to survive.
Sounds terrifying. It makes you realize how fragile our existence really is. Did we actually come that close to extinction?
It's definitely possible. Some genetic studies suggest that the human population may have dwindled to as few as 1,000 breeding individuals during that time.
Wow. That's a close call. It's mind-blowing to think our entire species, everything we are today, could have been wiped out by a single volcanic eruption.
It's definitely something to think about, and it really makes you appreciate the resilience of our ancestors. I mean, they found a way to survive and rebuild after such a catastrophic event. Talk about the strength of the human spirit.
This is giving me chills. To think we're all here today because a tiny group of our ancestors managed to pull through such an insane event. It makes you realize just how precious life is and how connected we all are.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that we're all part of a much bigger story, one that stretches back over thousands of years and connects us to everyone who came before us. And speaking of connections, are you ready for another crazy twist in this story of human evolution?
Okay, now you've got me on the edge of my seat. Hit me with it. What other surprises are hiding in our family history?
Remember how we were talking about Neanderthals having a bit of Homo sapiens DNA in their genome? It suggested an earlier migration out of Africa than we originally thought.
Yeah, that was a big surprise.
Well, recent analysis suggests it might be even more complicated than that. It looks like Neanderthals might have gotten the Homo sapiens DNA from interbreeding with what we call a ghost lineage.
A ghost lineage. Okay, now you have to explain that one.
It's a group of early humans that we haven't actually identified in the fossil record yet.
So an entirely unknown group of humans who interbred with Neanderthals and added to their genetic makeup, and ultimately to ours as well.
Exactly. It's like adding another layer of mystery to an already mysterious family tree. It's a reminder that we're really only just beginning to understand our own evolutionary past.
Okay, my head is officially spinning. We've got Neanderthals, Denisovans, at least 2 other mystery ancestors, and now a ghost lineage. It's like everyone is related in some way.
That's a great way to put it. It highlights just how interconnected our species truly is. We're all products of this incredibly long, incredibly complex, and often surprising journey of human evolution. And the more we learn, the more we realize just how diverse and resilient our ancestors were.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes. I feel like I'm seeing my own family history in a whole new way.
Me too. It really hits home that human evolution isn't just about ancient fossils and DNA. It's about us. It's about who we are, where we come from, and what it means to be human. And the best part is, the story is still being written.
I love that. And speaking of writing this story, this seems like a good place to pause for now. We'll pick up this incredible journey in our next episode. But before we go, I have to ask, what other secrets do you think might be lurking out there in our genes, just waiting to be unlocked?
Oh, I have no doubt there are many more surprises waiting to be discovered, and I can't wait to see what they reveal about our past and what it means to be human. But for now, I'll leave you with this. Never stop questioning, never stop exploring, and never lose your sense of wonder about the amazing journey that brought us all here.
Perfectly said. We'll be back soon to continue our exploration of this incredible tapestry of human evolution. Until then, keep those minds curious, and remember, the story of humanity is far more intricate and beautiful than we ever imagined.
See you next time.
Bye for now.
You know, it's funny how we often picture human evolution as this grand, sweeping narrative. But sometimes it all comes down to the story of just one individual.
Oh, I like where this is going. Tell me more.
Well, remember when we were talking about Neanderthals and Denisovans interbreeding?
Yeah, how could I forget? It's mind-blowing.
Right. Well, there's this one discovery that really solidified it for researchers, really proved just how closely connected their lives were.
Okay, you've got me hooked. I'm all ears.
It all boils down to Denny.
Denny. Who's Denny?
Denny, short for Denisovan 11, is what they nicknamed the fossilized remains of a young girl who lived around 90,000 years ago.
90,000 years ago. Wow. And where did they find her?
They found her remains in a cave in Siberia.
Siberia? Oh.
Yeah.
That's Denisovan territory, isn't it?
You'd think so, right? But here's the kicker. Genetic analysis showed that Denny wasn't just a Denisovan, she was a first-generation hybrid.
A hybrid, you mean?
Her parents were from 2 different human groups.
No way. Okay, now I have to know, who are her parents? Spill the beans.
Her mother was a Neanderthal and her father was a Denisovan.
Wow. So Neanderthals and Denisovans weren't just like occasionally mixing genes. They were having children together.
Exactly. Denny's discovery changed everything. It showed us that interbreeding wasn't a rare occurrence at all. It happened often enough to produce kids.
Wow, that's a game changer for sure. It's amazing how the story of one individual can have such a huge impact on our understanding of, well, everything.
I know, right? It's pretty remarkable. And it gets even more interesting. When they analyzed Denny's mother's DNA, they found that she was actually more closely related to Neanderthals from Western Europe than those from Eastern Europe.
Hold on, so you're saying this Neanderthal woman traveled all the way from Western Europe to Siberia, met a Denisovan guy, had a kid, and their remains were somehow preserved for us to find thousands of years later. That's one heck of a story.
I know, right? It's incredible. And it really shows us that these ancient human groups were way more mobile and interconnected than we used to think. They were migrating across vast distances, running into other groups, and building relationships that are still leaving traces in our genes today.
I'm starting to see human migration into the past so differently now. It wasn't just a simple, straightforward journey for these folks.
Definitely not. It was a dynamic and interconnected web of movement and interaction. Imagine a world without borders, where different human groups are constantly on the move, meeting new people, sharing ideas, and sometimes, making babies.
So Neanderthals mixing with Homo sapiens and Denisovans, Neanderthals and Denisovans mixing, and then those other mystery ancestors we talked about. It's like one big, messy, prehistoric family reunion.
Exactly. And who knows how many other secrets are still hidden out there, just waiting to be uncovered.
Okay, so we've established that Neanderthals had a pretty tough time with that bottleneck. But what about us? Homo sapiens, I mean. Did we go through anything similar?
Well, some researchers believe we might have. Around the same time, actually.
Really a bottleneck for Homo sapiens, too. Okay, but what would have caused something like that?
One theory is this massive volcanic eruption that happened around 74,000 years ago. It's called the Toba supereruption. Scientists think it might have triggered a global volcanic winter.
A volcanic winter? What's that?
Imagine prolonged periods of darkness, plummeting temperatures, and widespread famine. Not a good time to be alive.
That sounds absolutely terrifying. Did we really come that close to being wiped out completely?
It's a possibility. Some genetic studies suggest that the human population might have dropped to just a few thousand individuals during this period.
Wow. It's hard to believe that our entire species, everything we are today, could have been snuffed out by a single volcanic eruption. That's humbling.
I know, right? But on the flip side, it also makes you appreciate just how resilient our ancestors were. They survived a global catastrophe and somehow found a way to rebuild. It's a testament to the human spirit.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. So, are you saying we're all here today because a tiny group of our ancestors managed to pull through this insane event? I'm suddenly feeling very connected to those folks.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? It's a powerful reminder that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves, a story that stretches back over thousands and thousands of years. And hey, speaking of stories, are you ready for another plot twist?
Always. Hit me with it. What else we got?
Remember that bit about Neanderthals having some Homo sapiens DNA, suggesting an earlier migration out of Africa than we initially thought?
Yeah, that was a big one.
Well, new analysis suggests it might be even more complicated than that. It seems like Neanderthals might have actually gotten that Homo sapiens DNA through interbreeding with a ghost lineage.
A ghost lineage. Okay, you're going to have to explain this one. I'm intrigued.
Basically, it's a group of early humans that haven't shown up in the fossil record yet. We haven't found any physical evidence of them, but their genetic fingerprints are there.
So we're talking about a completely unknown group of humans who were interbreeding with Neanderthals, contributing to their genetic makeup, and ultimately to ours too.
Exactly. It's like adding yet another layer of complexity to our already incredibly intricate family tree. It shows us how much we still have to learn about our own evolutionary history.
Okay, this is mind-blowing. Neanderthals, Denisovans, at least two other mysterious ancestors, and now we have a ghost lineage. It's starting to feel like we're all connected in some way or another.
And that's a key takeaway here. It highlights the incredible interconnectedness of our species. We're all products of this long, winding, and often very surprising journey of human evolution. And every new discovery just emphasizes the incredible diversity and resilience of our ancestors.
I'm seeing my own family history and, well, everyone's family history in a whole new light after this deep dive.
It's amazing, isn't it? And it's so important to remember that human evolution isn't just about ancient fossils and DNA. It's about us. It's about who we are, where we come from, and what makes us human. And the most exciting part, the story is still being written.
This has been one wild ride through human evolution. I mean, we started with a pretty simple question, right? Where did Homo sapiens come from? And now, well, now we're talking about ghost lineages and volcanic winters and family tree that's more like a tangled jungle.
It's pretty amazing how much our understanding has changed, even in just the last few years.
I know, right? It makes you wonder what other crazy discoveries are still out there, just waiting to completely change the story again. But even with all this new stuff we've learned, I keep coming back to this one question. What does it even mean to be human anymore? Like, if we're all carrying around these bits of DNA from Neanderthals, Denisovans, and who knows who else, does that change how we define ourselves?
It's a really profound question, and it's one that anthropologists have been wrestling with for ages. It really pushes us to think outside those neat little boxes we like to put things in, you know? Like, what does it even mean to be a species?
Right. So maybe instead of thinking about Neanderthals and Denisovans and those other groups as, like, side branches that just died out, we should see them as essential parts of our story.
Exactly. They weren't just evolutionary dead ends. They're active players in the whole grand experiment of human evolution. Their genes, their cultures, their experiences, it all contributed to shaping who we are today.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about, A little bit of Neanderthal DNA might be the reason I can fight off a cold so easily, or maybe why I'm prone to allergies. It's a powerful reminder of just how connected we are to everyone and everything that came before us.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we're all part of this massive story that stretches back thousands and thousands of years. And that story is still unfolding, which is pretty amazing to think about.
This whole deep dive has been such an eye-opener. I feel like I'm seeing myself and the world around me in a whole new way.
Me too. And I think it's so cool that science can do that, you know? It's not just about cold, hard facts, but about these amazing stories and connections that make you think and feel differently about the world. It's like a constant reminder that we're still figuring things out and that there's so much more to learn about who we are and where we come from.
Well, that about wraps it up for our deep dive into human evolution. Who knew our family tree was so complicated, right?
Right. From ancient migrations and interbreeding to volcanic winters and ghost lineages, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. And who knows what incredible discoveries are waiting for us just around the corner.
I can't wait to find out.
Me neither. To all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this awesome exploration of human evolution. It's a story that's full of surprises, mysteries, and a deep sense of connection to our shared past. So until next time, keep asking questions, keep exploring, and never lose your sense of wonder about the amazing journey that brought us all here.
Couldn't have said it better myself. See you next time.
Bye for now.